All right, I think we are the start of part 2. So there was an interesting or two interesting conversation I had in the meantime, the break. So first thing, I will go. I'm really sorry that this is like the browser's taking so much space, but because of the screen recording, it's a fixed resolution, so we cannot change this. There was first the question, what speech-to-text tool I'm using. I think I didn't mention it directly. It's called Super Whisper. There are a bunch of tools out there that are doing the same. Please find one that suits you. You can add your own dictionary there, like abbreviation that you're using on a regular basis, or words that you're using on a regular basis, so it recognizes it. And you can choose which LLM is actually giving the output. So you can see it's quite easy to set up. So Super Whisper, I can really recommend. The second thing was the question, I have many external files. I've a Confluence page where my maybe technological architecture is saved, or where the PRDs are saved, or other information. And the question is, what should I actually save on my local machine? Because I don't want to save it there. It needs to live in Confluence, or maybe in Jira, or somewhere else where I'm keeping all that information. I always start with that, always start on your machine. Grab all the information from other sources, iterate on your machine, and then in the end send it back to wherever source you were pulling it from. I have to admit, last night or this morning at 1 a.m. last minute changes, I crashed my MCP server for Atlassian, so I don't have any access to Jira or Confluence, unfortunately. But I could have shown you like how easy the AI can use Confluence, for example. It can easily create something, can pull that information into your local machine and move on from there. But unfortunately, Docker made an update. I executed the update, and somehow it wasn't working anymore. But it doesn't matter. We have other things that we can have a look at. But that's how you should work with it. You should pull the information, iterate on that, and then push it back to whatever source you were pulling it from in the first place. Then we're talking about, what else could live in those files? We could have to-dos, features, PRDs, strategies. You could have a to-do file, for example, for yourself. Actually, that's how I'm using it. I have a to-do file for myself in a project folder where I'm organizing my daily business, and so on and so forth. Let's jump into the second part, and let's have a look at how to do tasks with AI that need way more context than maybe just a single file, or just what you can put in the claude.md file. Why? Because PM work is normally work that includes a lot of different information, a lot of different documents, strategic documents, maybe even technology if you want to go that far, with lots of context. And you are not, with the current LLMs, with the current AI that you have, you cannot load everything by default into the context window, because it would have been cluttered quite quickly, and you would land into the dumb zone, and it won't be able to give you good outputs based on that. So you want to manage that properly, and you want to give him that output, that input, that context only when it needs it. Let it read the files when you're working with a certain task, right? That's why it's actually good to have those folders. You can tell them, go into that folder, read the files in that folder, and execute a certain task. We will have a look at something, how this it could work, but there's no coding involved in managing the context. You can tell them by telling an assistant how we should go about something. Go into that folder, read that process or workflow, how you should maybe create a report, a monthly report, and then tell them, okay, you need this sources, you need that sources, please pull it all together, and the reports should be in the format X and Y. You could tell them. And when I say tell, don't write it. Talk with it and do it together with him. Like, create those workflows together with him. let's see. So we will try to do a lot of demoing right now. The first thing, I have prepared something for the workshop, so which everyone who is using Cursor right now can open on their computer, which is a collection of certain skills that I found really helpful while interviewing PMs and having my own experience, which is doing that kind of, which is doing a lot of previous work, like for example creating strategic workflows, how to do OKRs. By the way, who is using OKRs for strategic planning, goal setting? Yeah, not that many. It's just a framework. We don't need to go into the depth of it. It's just a framework how to get a quarterly planning properly set up, a yearly planning properly set up, and how to measure it. Right? It's just one of those frameworks which needs a lot of good information and good steering to get a proper output, because we heard LLMs are by default not perfect at giving output for complex questions if they don't have your context. So the first thing you are going to do, everybody with a cursor setup, create a new folder. You can name it however you want, your AI companion or something. Then we can do this together. So, create a new folder. Don't want to create another one because I already have it open. Let's do like that. So, new window with new window. You can just create a new window here. That is how to load a separate cursor window, right? We want to have two cursor windows. We want to have the initial one with the project you created at the very beginning. You want to have a second one with the selection of features and skills we want to add right now. So, and we will choose the middle section here, like clone repository. This is something I'm not good, or I'm not really capable of working with GitHub. That's a tool that is used by developers mostly. I find it really hard to understand the Git flow, but nevertheless, it's the perfect place to store files and to version files and to exchange data and exchange files. So it's actually a really good tool, but it's just a bit too complex to manage. But the AI can do this for us. And Cursor is a coding tool, so it has access to all those files. So what we do, we say clone repository, and what it does, it looks into a certain GitHub project. This is one of my own, and where I've uploaded a couple of files and skills, which we will talk about in a second, and it would download it to your computer. No malware here, it's really just some text files and markdown files. You edit, then you choose a folder, the one that you just created, the second one, and then you say select as repository destination. And what you end up with is, let's see, this one. This is how it should look like. Oh, moving that. Is that working? For some of you, not everybody. We will do this here on the stage, but nevertheless, it would be perfect if you have it. At the very end, you can just you get the presentation, and you can do it on your own later at home. There's a couple of skills and examples how this setup is working. You can start with it and explore it. How a claude.md file could be formulated. For example, I have a claude.md file prepared where you can say, well, I want to choose this and that, and I have some best practices, and I have this file here on top, which we'll talk about in a second, and we have some workshop demo of a fictional company that we will talk about in a second with a lot of information. But let's jump back, select features, repository. So now, what is a skill? A skill is a terminology that Anthropic came up, and many others jumped on top of that. It's like prompt engineering 2.0. It's like giving a lot of, not only the prompt, but giving a lot of context as well together with the prompt. right? Normally you have a prompt, okay, you write a long prompt about, okay, my company is doing this and that, and we want to achieve this and that. You give all that information. It's still not enough information for many of the tasks that you actually want to do. So a skill combines, or is a method to communicate lots of information, lots of context to the AI. It's not code. It's not something that is written somewhere. Somebody was here actually using Claude skills. This is exactly how it's working. But we want to do skills on our own. We want to create skills, and we have an example: goal setting OKRs. But we want to start first with how does it actually look like, because that is you need to look at it to get an idea of it. So we have a lot of skills that I prepared that you can look at, have an idea. We will look into the OKR expert. So what is a skill? It is basically, you see the .claude file. This is just a weird kind of file which contains system, let's call it system files that you want to change and edit. And it has the subfolder of skills. And it's within the subfolder, you have other folders which are the actual skills. And the skills contain a lot of information. They contain a bunch of files, context, basically. And let's have a look at this OKR expert skill. So again, OKRs are just a framework to come up with goals and how to measure those goals in a strategy or strategy aligned goals. Let's call it like that. And as some of you might notice who is working with OKRs, the default answers to a question, please help me with creating my goals based on our KPIs, the default answer is not good. So we want to tell them, okay, what are the best practices that we want to apply to our company and business model? And you want to load the best practices from a good source, put it into the context, and let it cook based with that good context. What I told you, you want to put good context into the context window, so you're sure that the answer that the AI is giving is based upon good context. So what do we have here? We have some. In the OKR field, there are some people who are really, really good at that. They are doing workshops how to apply good OKRs and how to create them and what are bad OKRs. This is Christina Wodke, the guy Klau. I don't know his forename. He's the guy from Google who came up with the whole concept. And Marty Kagan, of course, because he has an opinion on a lot of strategic topics. You all should know about him, I guess. And I basically downloaded before, or told the AI, like Claude Code, what was with Claude, like go to their blogs and download all the information, because that is where the good information is, right? I can tell, of course, well, I like about OKRs, this and that. No, I want to feed it the best information that it can possibly get. And then I told it, please create a skill from it. Like a skill, which is that file. So it has a name, like the OKR expert, and there's a description to it. Apply OKR best practices from Christina Wodke, Rick Klau, Rick is the name, when creating, reviewing, or discussing OKRs. Use it when user mentions OKRs, objectives, key result, quarterly planning, blah, blah, blah. So what I did is, after that, he will read. We will talk about in a second how this is executed, like when he looks at it. But what it contains is basically the information about supporting files. How should he go about that? And the AI will read the whole document. It's not a short one, right? It could be shorter, but he reads a lot of information. So supporting files, load methodology files immediately based on company type. So the Christina Wodke OKR setting basically is good for small companies. The Rick Klau OKR settings is good for large companies. So depending on what I have, like what my company is about, he will give me, or he will load that context, what is relevant, like who is the best expert to guide me with my specific context size. Because I told him so. This is not a coded if this then that. It's a written workflow, a guideline that the AI should follow. And you can write this for every workflow that you have and every please, when this, do that. You can write it or let the AI write it. So company type, read these files. If you're a startup, 5 to 50 people, use the vodka approach. This is the vodka approach, markdown file. This is that one here. Let's quickly have a look. Core philosophy, the secret of OKRs is not the framework, it's the cadence, and so on and so forth. Like, there are specific information about that specific topic where I'm pretty sure that the trained data of the AI is not as good as this condensed data of those experts. So I want to feed it, when I'm doing the OKRs, the best information possible, and I want to steer it. And again, I'm not coding this. This is basically, I told them, please look inside the skill, read the skill, and then outgoing from the skill, decide yourself what you're reading. What we're working with is it's an agent, right? And he decides what he does. He decides what file to read, what maybe MCP server he's connected to, what internet search it's doing. So it's pretty capable of selecting the right information based on a written guideline or workflow. That's why skills are actually named workflows. They are actually workflows with more context that you want to give. That is not just a one-term prompt. Then what else? Instruction, check prerequisites, Kagan's critical test when you start, before recommending OKRs, verify feature team, product team, right? And it tells you when you have bad OKRs, when you have bad ideas. Okay, my boss likes to have this or that goal. He wants to set this. He wants to take this KPI to measure our goal, and it tells you based on that information, no, that's bad. Like, choose a different one. So you can even defend it against your boss or other stakeholders. So what it then should, of course, do, he needs to do, of course, load company context and methodology. He reads the Claude.md file. We will have a look at the Claude.md file as well, but we're pointing him to that file where this company-specific information is stored. Sure, he already has this more or less in the context window, but nevertheless, we are telling him specifically look there again and load it maybe a second time into the context window and see which of those experts apply here. We can quickly, so we have a new Claude.md file. Again, this is a completely different project, independent from the one before. We can open the Claude.md file here, and this is way longer. It's way too much in here, so just select later. But we at the end, I think we have all the company information, strategic context, decision-making, team size. So there's a lot of information about that you could fill with your information. We will, in a second, the AI can help you with doing that. You don't have to go in there and type everything. But it looks here and sees, okay, what team size do they have? What product are they working on? And do the KPIs make sense to use for planning and so on and so forth? So this is when you download it, it's completely empty. So you can fill it up with your information as well. And you have a good template or a good starting point to do your work. And you can either continue working in this environment or copy certain files into the other system. So let's quickly do an example with getting your context. Starting here. By the way, this is how it looks when I execute the speech to text, and then it creates it and adds it in here. That was not visible beforehand because it was on the other screen. Hi there. This is I'm new in working with the Cursor AI PM workspace. I called it the environment to manage my PM work together with AI. Can you help me set it up? So let's see how he goes about it and what he's doing. So you see what he thinks. You can actually, by the way, we can Make it a bit longer. The user is new to Cursor AI frameworks and wants to help setting, looking at the cloud.md, right? That's open. I can see the user context section. It didn't even have to read it here. I could have it closed. It would have it in the context. This is a first time user according to the instruction in the cloud.md, which I put there, or I let him put there. Then PM system, built by PM. This workspace helps you with OKRs, create tracks, and that's just an example of the skills. So you can let it explain the type of skills that it offers. But it will take, or it helps you, I need your context. It helps you to set it up. Do this on your own, maybe not right now, but you can do it later. That's the beauty of it. I didn't have to write like how does the onboarding work and everything like that. I just told them, okay, please create an onboarding. I need the user to get the context first. It should be saved in the cloud.md. Go. That was basically the conversation. And then he asked, shall I put this in or that in? And we iterated and I said, no, this not, please put that in. And that's about it. So in order to use the OKR skill, let's quickly... All right, thanks a lot. I have a lot of context stored in the workshop demo swag stack folder. Please look into that folder and find out all the documents that are relevant for strategy and about our company, and read them and fill up the company context. Yeah, in case something is missing, please make stuff up. We will change this later, maybe. Change this better. You see, somehow, sometimes he messes it up. By the way, the longer it runs, the better the output gets for speech to text, because it has the context of the thing that you want to get across. So if you just have 2-3 words that you're saying, he's pretty likely to fuck this up. And you can, of course, change words here. So what I did is I have workshop demo swag stack. There is a lot of documents in here, which are already formatted as Markdown files, which is a bit cheating, but you, of course, can upload your files as well. If you have presentations like strategy presentation or something to give them that context, format it into a PDF and let it read the PDF. Is not good in reading PowerPoint slides, unfortunately. So PDF is way more helpful, or as pictures. But to be honest, I haven't tried it with pictures. Pictures are always a bit of an issue because they could get too big when the presentation is too long. So let's see what it does. What I want him to do is right now the prepared information, the annual OKRs, best. No, I added the other information as well to create a completely new skill. We have strategic planning here. We have information about the swag stack, GmbH, German kind of company, right? Most likely you will have some kind of information about your company, even if you take your website and just let it scrape your website, it will find out what you're doing, what products you're creating, and you can put it all into one folder and let it cook, right? And let's see what it does. He will dive into the work, to the folder, and he will basically find out, okay, a Berlin-based e-commerce company, 4 million ARR, and so on and so forth. It will find out the necessary KPIs. It's quite good at it. That's not a hard thing. The issue with that kind of thing is you need to see it with your own data to that it really clicks. That's why demos are always a bit tricky, but it now will update the cloud file based on that information. Let's give it a bit more time. We can have a look at the files maybe. Oh, it's still cooking. So it fills up the empty information in the cloud.md file by himself because he reads what there is, this is not hard to set up. Like maybe at the end he will say, well, you would want maybe to add this or that information into the Claude.md file to give it even more context about your work, or maybe less, or maybe that's too much, or that's duplicated information. So it's quite easy to set this up. And you don't even need my repository. You can do it just on your own and send over all the information, let him create those Claude.md file based on the information that you have at your disposal. Add as much information as you want, because you will do this once and you can tell them, okay, please compact it to a level where we have, I don't know, 4 files or something with 500 lines on average or something. That's perfectly fine. So that when you're working on a certain topic, in this case, like on the strategic OKRs, it can load all the files easily, and they're not too large, and you can start from there. That is the idea here. So, a few things to confirm, update later. Your role, I said as a product manager as a default, what's your actual title at Swagstack, PM tools, the docs link. So, for example, he didn't specify if you use Linear, Jira, Notion, what else. So it will spot what's missing, and it will ask you, okay, please add that information and we can even give better outputs. Language preference set to English or German. I think he has found some German. There shouldn't be any German here, but I hope that's fine. So this is to give a lot of context, and now we can do something with this skill. So we had looked briefly about the anatomy of the skill, right? And just to give it back, to bring it back into your context window. This was the skill. We told him read the user context section. Now we have filled up the user context section properly with a lot of information about goals, KPIs, and so on and so forth, and maybe a strategic document that came out of an offsite in the last quarter. And now we can say, okay, let's trigger that skill. Hi there. I would love to work with you on the OKRs for like the strategic planning OKRs for Q1 2026. Can you help me with that? So he has my contacts, he knows that we are, and by the way, this is a different conversation, right? It's not the previous one where we did all the Swagstack stuff already. He's reading, it's a new conversation with a fresh context window. We didn't need to care about cleaning the context window up or something. We just started fresh, and he reads the files that are there, and he gets and pulls the context. So, but let's maybe have a look at what he thought about in the beginning. The user wants help with OKRs for Q1 2026. Based on the Claude context, I can see there's a Swagstack, their critical phase, Series A in progress, Q1 2026 priorities are clear. That was coming from the document, the strategic document, and so on and so forth. And he was reading, of course, the documents before, so it's not that he only read that, but that is the output that he tells me that he does, because he won't repeat everything that he read. So he explored 5 files. He read the skill document because he understood, well, the user wants to do OKRs, like the strategic goal setting. Then he read strategic planning Q1 2026. He read the annual OKRs, and then now let me load them. So it tells you what it does. So it's easy to debug. Like sometimes there's an issue. Well, he should read that as well, or he forgets to read something, and we need to enforce him to really read it. That might be an issue sometimes, but he tells you what he read, why he read that, and how you can follow up with that. So. Read comparison, Marty Kagan perspective, excellent, I got the full picture, let me walk through what I'm seeing, and then we craft OKRs together. Quick context, Swagstack profile, strategic planning doc outlines 5 priorities. They are already set. Of course, based on what you would want to do is doing, looking on your, I want to do my new OKRs for next year. I'm loading all the past OKRs and the outcomes maybe of 2025 into the context window. I will give him the output of your thoughts, the thoughts of your management. Maybe there's a file that is that helps you, or that already set a direction you want to achieve Series A or something, and then you put everything into a folder, and then you say, well, go start and put everything to the context, and then let's work on it. And what we have, fix enterprise retention, your Q1 strategic priorities. Still have some questions. Given you're a scale up, I recommend the hybrid approach, company OKRs, team OKRs, no individual OKRs. So those are the best practices that you just fed him. I don't think so. If we would have just with maybe 1 or 2 documents and given those documents to just ChatGPT or even Claude without any context, then we wouldn't have gotten this level of detail and understanding of our situation. And quick decision for you, do you want a company level OKRs? Yeah, I don't care. You decide, just create the Q1 OKRs and we're good to go. Just a side on you. Just a side note here, that if I'm not speaking out properly, of course, that doesn't help. We'll just send it over. All right, so back into Google. So we learned that this is a skill. Let's quickly, what is the skill? At least the rough understanding, please. You can read it up later with a little bit of, read it carefully in the folder, that's all set. But now the question is, how was it triggered? Like how did he understand that he now needs to use that certain file with all the information? How did he know that he needs to read the skill.md file in that folder? Because we have 20 skills and he doesn't necessarily know about what's in the folders without searching for it. There are 2 ways to make it happen. Let me quickly jump out. Let him cook a bit further. He's just filling out the rest of the information. So the first and easiest way to give the AI information about what skills or what bigger tasks you are doing on a regular basis is to just mention it in the claude.md file. And it's already quite lengthy. You don't want to have that long of a file, but it helps for the start. Workflow, by the way, this is the same. I gave him the structure so it knows that it has Claude skills, agent skills, and I will explain those skills a bit later. I start up. Cursor docs here. So available skills. So I tell him what skills and folders are available there. I just tell him and hand it over to him in the context at the beginning of every conversation. I'm not doing this actively. This is automatically loaded. When I do this, at that point, it's loaded into the context window of that conversation already. So he knows he has the OKR expert skill, and he knows use when creating, reviewing OKRs, quarterly planning, goal setting, discussing. So you're navigating him through text or with text into that file to please read that document and follow those steps. And he, of course, in the skill file then references all the company context in the claude.md file to go on to understand what everything is about. So the navigation is still claude.md. That is still a thing that helps us here big time. That is the easy way, but specifically developers wouldn't want to rely on one huge file where everything is located. So you want to be more careful. You want to have certain files for certain actions, for certain things. Maybe the to-do list shouldn't live in line 578 in the cursor document, in the claude.md file. You want to have this separately. So that's where the solution or the tools are slightly different. Claude and Claude Code and Anthropic does serve this in a certain way, but Cursor does it slightly different. It has Cursor rules. And those rules are really helpful because they are loaded in the very beginning. Let's start here. It's a bit ugly to see. I can actually open it just in the... So we have some rules and commands. This is here in the settings. And exactly in the same window where we added the claude.md in the context file, we can scroll down and we get to the project rules. And there is add rule. And you can create a rule, and a rule serves one thing. Same with the claude.md file here. It is loaded into the context window at the very beginning. Right? So you start with it, the AI knows about the existence of a certain rule. And we can define when to use that rule and when the AI decides to look at it and follow the steps that are defined in the rule itself. In this case, we have the agent decides rule. I don't have any rules here, by the way, because this system is working with the claude.md file to make it easier for you, but we will now create a couple of rules. And let's have a look at the actual rule that has been created. It's a bit, I don't find it that nice that you can define the rules in the settings UI and you can define it there in the actual folder. I like it more that it just lives in the folder because it's just a file, right? It's the same kind of markdown file that follows the same principle as other markdown files. So what is the rule about? Description, it responds with words when the user says hello. So let's try this. So it recognizes I want him to do something when the conversation is about a certain thing. This was easy because I said just answer world when I say hello, right? But you can say more things. If you mention, well, we need a new architecture, or we just implemented a new architecture we implemented a new tool. We use Linear instead of Jira, for example. This is a big change, and this is a big change that should be referenced in context files. So you want him to guide you, to tell you, oh, you changed to Jira, Linear to Jira, yeah? And let's mention it somewhere where in the context files about your company, so we keep this in the back of our heads. So we should want to jump on top of that topic, and so that you don't have to, right? This is a way how the rules are described. So we have two options here, or one option always applies true. This will always trigger. This will always be loaded. Like this is always loaded. Like this is basically okay. That's a necessary understanding here. So this text here is loaded automatically, and it's an issue that it's doubled. Normally you say, well, trigger when a certain technological stack is changing, or when a new person starts, right? You have another direct report, or your job has changed. Then you want to jump on top of that and say, well, we might want to change this or that. Maybe you're like the person you have maybe a folder for should be added another person, and so on and so forth. And then it should be triggered. Here, down here, this is what is loaded when he finds, oh, he wants to talk about, or there is a certain thing that I recognize in the conversation. It's called intent. The AI is able in the conversation to spot your intent, like what you have in mind for a certain conversation, what you're working with, and it will catch that and will execute, or not execute. This sounds too much like coding. It will just read the bottom half, right? So let's change it here. Whenever the user mentions Jira, tell him to use linear instead. No, different. Jira. So. And what we're changing is the apply, always apply, to apply intelligently. The dropdown helps you to do this more easily, but that's just changing this to false, and that should be it. I hope it works now. I don't have to load. Let's load it up. Load up a different window. Hey, I love using Jira by heart. So, as I said, you see the thoughts, how the model is thinking. The user mentioned Jira according to the agent requestable workspace rules. I should use the rule at so on and so forth whenever the user mentions Jira. Let me read that rule first. Also, since this is a returning user context, Swagstack give a brief greeting and help immediately. The preferred English language is English. Then he read that rule. But indeed, I wouldn't. Haha, that's a fun rule. The rule says to tell the user to use it instead of when he mentions Jira. So you see, he catches the intent because he follows the conversation. Because what was added to his context window, I know, close everything. Oh, couldn't just open it here. The top part, the description, was added to the context window by default at the very beginning, same as in the claude.md file, right? There's a huge file, but after the file, this rule.md, I could have called it or mentioned or called it like, tell me about a better ticket system or something. He said he noticed, okay, whenever the user mentions Jira, apply this rule and then keep on doing. Tell him to use linear instead, and it's quite clear how he get to that, how you get to that understanding. And this is how you can really easy to set up those kind of rules, because what you can now do is actually I will. This is something that helps you a lot with working with Cursor, working with Claude Code as well, with other agentic systems. Give them their own documentation to read whenever you do something with them. So, what do I wanted to do? So please create a new rule based on the documentation that I hand over to you. That is adding a new person to a new direct report to a direct report folder when a new person starts in the company, when a new product manager is starting at the company, right? So what it is here, I tell him something he should do. I copy pasted the Cursor rules, like the documentation about that, and I will let him cook. He doesn't have any context about anything we just did, besides, of course, what's preloaded. The user wants me to create a new cursor rule when a new, so he needs to understand what is a cursor rule, because those are language models that they don't know about the documentation. Some parts of the documentation might be loaded, but not everything. So you want to give them the documentation about their own features so they can build it for you. I don't have to go to the UI, to the settings to select, okay, rule, apply all the time or don't apply. That is definitely something that the AI should do for you, because it's just a file. So he read the best practices, how to set up a rule, and follows the triggers when you say things like new PM joining, add direct report, folder structure created, team. I didn't have the team yet, right? So he thought it for me, direct reports, readme new PM.md, 1 file per person created when onboarding. That's it. Could you mention that new file structure in the claude.md file? We need it to be updated there as well. That's something that I don't know if I have added that, but he forgets sometimes to update the documents. I think I don't have prompted him to do good enough or hard enough to do so. So yeah, he will update that. Nevertheless, I want to check if that rule is applying. Hello there. I have a new direct report. A new PM started. His name is Max, and he is starting as the new PM for our merchandise products and the platform we are providing. I think the swag stack demo was about an e-commerce for swag and merchandise articles. So let's see, he read the rule. He spotted that a new person is joining, right? I didn't have to give exact keywords. Like, you know, the old way of doing certain things without AI was technology needs to spot a certain pattern in words to become triggered. The AI will interpret, he will understand the semantic meaning of a certain thing, and then it will be able to execute from there. So let's see, team, readme. Should I know? Once you get it, I'll create Max profile. Of course, there is no team yet. Sure, please make up some information for Max. I will cover this up later. And by the way, maybe look into the rest of the context of the company and at all the other team members of our company that are direct reports for me. Could be a bit tricky, but because I don't know exactly how I created the dummy data that I'm the head of product, and it creates it from there. So, but that's a way you could add more information, retrieve more information, because of course now you can say, okay, let's give me all the people that are working, that are my direct reports in a new window. Why, by the way, the others are cooking. Like, this is, I don't want to call it agentic, like, is this agentic you can have just run like the AI in multiple tabs. This is not, I'm spawning up 200 agents who are working in parallel. This is just, you're doing multiple things at the same time. Yeah, nothing really fancy. So we learned we can have big, like a rule like the OKR expert, right? We have looked at the skill, he should follow the steps, and that rule or that skill was triggered by the claude.md file because it understood, well, I should use that skill whenever he wants to do OKRs, right? That is something we were pretty comfortable setting in the claude.md file, but now we have a second possibility to trigger it, and you can just use a cursor rule file. So, rules are triggered by the AI by intent. Yeah, I just made up a funny picture. The AI will spot the intent, but it's way better to show this in the actual demo. We did that. Build your system, use folders. We have one more thing that I want to show. So, new chat. All right. As a fun project for some customers, we have created a fun little game. And I would love to get the style and the specifics of the game here into our product folder and to look at it and maybe make changes for proposals, add new features and so on and so forth. And please help me setting this up. I will give you the GitHub link and please create another folder here so you have access to it. And please mention it in the Claude.md file as well so we know that's there. Here is the GitHub link. Guitar link. You see, GitHub proposals. Git here, he did it correctly. I really misspelled GitHub here. So that is something I'm always preaching to PMs. Get your own code base into your system and let the AI get all the context of the product that you're actually working with. You could, of course, have a conference page loaded into their. I messed it up. Dip. Flappy Bird. And he spotted that, so that's a good one. GitHub, your username before. What did I post? I think there was just the documentation, right? Yeah, it was just the documentation. Sorry. You don't want to know about the documentation, the technical architecture of your project and feed that to the AI. No, you want to feed the actual project as far as possible. Of course, we have microservices cluttered all over different systems and multiple repositories and stuff, and that could be hard for big projects. But specifically for small projects, we had a conversation before that you can actually have the code and whatever, and create the new feature on your machine or the idea for a new feature on your machine. Because what the AI is really capable of is pulling data and pulling repositories from GitHub. No worries, that's a Flappy Bird clone. Nice, let them set it up for you. Great. We'll fix this later. Update the workspace, README to document it, take a look at the code structure, let me get started. So he added, now he figured it out. So he even started it, right? Captured screen, snapshot, running browser, the game is loading. I think he spotted that there was an issue. It's a really simple application. It's just running in the browser directly. It doesn't even have any front and back end thing. So it's an easy example. Nevertheless, it should now be here. And the whole source code should be here. Core, entity, system, utils, that's a fun project we did. And he was cooking a bit, game, want me to implement any of those features. There were actually already some features that and now we're coming into two areas. First, prepare your meetings with your devs based on the actual code. You can go already into the meeting and say, well, that could be a tough thing. I know it because the AI told me we have to build 5 new endpoints and complete new data structure and whatever before we actually build a front end or think about UI. Or it could be, well, that should be an easy fix. That's just the color of a button and then a CSS change, right? You should use that to prepare your meetings and get a little bit of a senior dev sitting at the side of you. I'm just accepting the changes. And then for the designers, okay, thanks a lot. Please pull out all the design and the CSS, the coloring from the game in a certain, like in CSS format or something that we can reuse, that we can build new products or new games from it, but it should stick or should stay with the same, or should keep the visuals, the UI, the style that we keep consistent with our corporate UI. Pretending this is our corporate UI, of course, that's bullshit. But I wanted to for preparing prototypes or click dummies or whatever. I want to extract from the product. Maybe you have your product there and you want to get the color scheme, the palette out of it, and he will create a design system markdown file, which we can use to create other products later. So starting with the second point that I mentioned, vibe coding, but of course not in production. You shouldn't, well, you could commit, actually we talked about that before as well. You could commit your changes, but you could just make proposals and prepare some meetings, and we already have some visuals. By the way, that is the case for designers here. So a designer should, of course, they're working in Figma and other tools, and they have fancy other tools as well, but they could instead load all the front-end components there and just go, I think that there's a library even where you can add an MCP that has all the documentation in code, but you could try to use that and already prepare as a designer or some front-end code that looks nice and maybe keeps up with the back-end structure that is already there. So now let's create the actual importable CSS and JavaScript files. And now, of course, it comes in handy that this is an actual vibe coding tool. Of course, you don't want to vibe code necessarily. You could, of course, with everything that's coming out. But the strength is definitely on that side. So I would always go or try to get the code on my local machine, see, maybe understand it even. I mean, how many of you have no real idea where the complexity in the product, where the complexity actually is? Like, is it in the back end? Of course, you could ask questions, but maybe you don't want to ask every question that sounds stupid for you. It was definitely for me, so I would love to have somebody who helps me with that and prepare and ask stupid question regarding the code base. So, because what we can do, yeah, hi, could you please tell me a little bit about the game that we have here, the Flappy Bird clone? I would love to know and learn about maybe where the complexity is and where we can scale this and what is easy to change and so on and so forth, right? Of course, made up because that's just a browser game, but that's should be the way you go about that, and the speed of that you get answers from, instead of asking a senior dev or some person who knows best about your product. I mean, you don't have to write a chat like a Slack message or something else. You can just ask it. Of course, huge projects, a lot of brownfield legacy code and stuff, it's of course tough to pull down, but even that is possible to a good extent. I think you could add multiple repositories into one and locally download them and let it find out how the different repositories are interacting with each other. How we are in time? Okay, so that's definitely a recommendation. Try it, ask the questions. I would have loved to ask more questions when I was in my operational role, and it can help you with that. So, build your system. So, make it your own. Create your folders, create your structure, use the rules, use the Claude.md file, explore what works and what not for your specific case. The sad answer is, I can actually make it big. You have to use it to understand how it's reacting, how it reacts to how it jumps on the topics you're mentioning, how it gets your intent, create your skills, but always ask it to do it for you. Like, try to get into that mode of the assistant that sits right next to you and does all the changes. Keep that in mind and speak and talk. Describe what the folders are in the Claude.md file. Explain in a README file in every folder what shall be read. You can give If you have a lot of files in one folder, you can give specific README files at the beginning. The AI is really good at reading README files. It knows if there's a README file in that folder, I have to read it. Same a bit like the skill. If folders are not enough, build a rule that points to it. We had a look at that. Build a system, strategy, to-do list, features, products, stakeholders, whatever. You can download that. This is could be a starting point, but many cases that are not relevant for you. It cannot really break. That's a good thing. Like there's no code that when you change a certain word that it doesn't work anymore. It's quite stable, but sometimes you need to steer it in a different direction. Make it your own. What could be the next steps? Connect Jira and Confluence. Again, I would have loved to show you something like that, but it's not that hard to set up the Jira connection and MCP connection. Use Docker Desktop. That is, I know PMs have a hard feeling about Docker and everything that comes with it, and refactoring and so on and so forth, but Docker Desktop has the best solution for MCP servers, I would say, for non-technical folks. Just set it up, connect it, it's quite easy to manage, and it just it creates the MCP server on your computer just when you need it, and it puts it down again, so you don't have MCP servers running locally on your machine. And yeah, vibe code with it, that's really fun. And based on your setting. Wrap up, start with using exactly that ChatGPT. The more you work with it, the better it will become. Adapt your structure every now and then. So you need to get back and, well, we need to adapt here. We need to be a bit more explicit here when it doesn't work anymore. Sometimes 2 steps ahead, 1 step back. There will be setbacks, and always start in the folder. You can have different folders with different projects, as we have seen, right? One folder for this, you can have one for private topics as well. And there's way much more to explore here. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We'd love to connect with all of you over LinkedIn. I'm posting, unfortunately, in German about those topics because I had started in German and you're stuck with the ordinance when you started with German, but you can translate it or ask ChatGPT to translate it. That's helping as well. And yeah, have a look at the Cursor AI PM workspace. And just copy the GitHub URL into your locally running Cursor setting. It will import everything. It can do everything in GitHub, and that's it. I think we're in Q&A.
Yes. We have time for a couple of questions, maybe. Sorusu olan var mı? Zaten şeyde de arkada burada olacak Hendrik. You can also do here anyway. If you want afterwards, they can come and talk to you as well.
Pardon?
You're here, they can come
yeah,
sure.
Sure.
As well.
I'll stay here for a while, I guess, as long as it needs. So, come approach me. Any questions?
They'll come find you afterwards.
I guess it's way better to ask individual questions between.
Right, okay. Hendrik, thank you so much for coming all the way from Germany to Istanbul with us. Umarım faydalı olmuştur sizin için. Şimdi bir sonraki konuşmayla devam edeceğiz. Sonrasında da yemeğe gideceğiz.